Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain.
I can't hear you.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Oh, who lives in Atlantis under the sea?
Aquaman. Yeah, this movie did remind me of SpongeBob SquarePants at times. There's a scene where we see an octopus drumming, and I'm like, Squidward stepped up from the clarinet.
Yep. The beat's working in the Krusty Krab.
He finally put his artistic skills to use.
Yeah. Please, Super Bowl, have Sweet Victory play in honor of the late creator of SpongeBob.
They should do that at some point.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, they should have SpongeBob start singing, Sweet Victory, perform that during that, big, gladiator fighting.
Right.
Oh, that would have been a great voiceover for the fights of this movie. Oh.
Yeah.
or like the announcer Fish, who is like on the news programs in Bikini Bottom. This just in. Can you just like the Slammin' Salmon or whatever bass that's mounted on the wall, just talking the whole time?
Yeah.
That would have been hilarious.
As the narrator.
Yes.
Alright, so hi, welcome to End Credit Reviews. On episode of After the Credits on End Credit Reviews. This is Tyler from End Credit Reviews.
And Steven from Steven Lawson Studios.
And Simply Tihana.
And we are here with an episode of After the Credits here on End Credit Reviews. And we just saw Aquaman. Now the thing is that I kind of grew up with Aquaman personally. I was a big fan of this movie, a movie of his when I was a kid. But the movie was called Creature from the Black Lagoon. So...
Yep.
Yeah, I think we can all agree it was better than that stupid, pretentious garbage in the shape of water.
Oh,
yeah.
Which, by the way, I'll probably rip into that movie eventually.
Yep.
Anyway, I digress.
Already negative comments, probably.
Alright, so I should shut this light off here.
Sure.
The headlights. Anyway, so this, of course, is another one in the DC Extended Universe, and it seems like the hate parade has kind of passed the DCAU.
Oh, they're trying. They are still trying. I mean, we can hear the sphincters clenching in the theater from the thorough Marvel dick writing that is present in the internet culture that leads into theaters. But we were actually talking about that earlier. But
yeah, I mean, they're probably sidetracked with how good Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is.
True.
Which, yeah, that's a really good one. I highly recommend that one. But anyway, this is another one in the DCAU, and this one was directed by, who was it again?
Gosh, I'm forgetting his name.
I just forgot it too.
Is it James Wan?
Yeah, James Wan. This guy has directed a lot of horror movies like The Conjuring and Insidious. Mm-hmm. And then he directed a true horror movie known as Furious 7.
Yeah, no, what a turd.
One of the worst movies to make over $1 billion next to the live-action Beauty and the Beast movie.
No question.
Changed my mind. But yeah, I would say that this movie is a big step up from Furious 7, I gotta say.
For sure, yes.
In this movie, we've got Jason Momoa, is it?
Yep.
Momoa, yeah.
Yeah, you know his name.
Real Momoa's boy.
Who plays Arthur, who is a half-human, half-Atlantean...
Half aardvark, no.
And basically, he's been trying to get in touch with not only the surface world, but also the world of Atlantis. And thus, he's trying to, stop a war from starting with the surface world that's being spearheaded by his half-brother. What was his name again?
I forgot what they called him in the movie, but Ocean Master was one of the
Okay, yeah, played by, who was it again?
It was Patrick Wilson.
Yeah, Patrick Wilson, who I know best as playing Owlman.
Yeah.
Or was it Night Owl? Night Owl from Watchmen.
Night Owl, yeah.
Yeah, there's parts where it's like, yeah, this reminds me of Watchmen right here.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that he's not the only villain in the movie. We also have Black Manta played by
longest name in history, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II.
he sounds like Middle Eastern royalty.
Yeah.
He may have his own Marvel movie because of his name.
I mean, what do his friends call him? Ya? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saya.
So yeah, as I was saying,
Yeah, and thus he's accompanied by, what was her name again with the water powers?
well, Mira is the character's name, but Amber Heard is the actress.
Yep, and in this movie, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's so good and that, and what did you think of Aquaman, Steven?
Well, I overall was very impressed. I was not sure how it was honestly going to be, because I know that a lot of people like Jason Momoa, and so there was a lot of hype going in for him. But I'm glad to say a lot of the hype for this movie that seems to have been apparent seems to be overall well worth it.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem to be a case similar to Wonder Woman or Black Panther earlier, where there is a clear, political angle driving it. And this was one where it was just fun and a lot of interesting choices in cinematic techniques and stuff that made it quite dynamic, especially in terms of the colors.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I know some people complain about in the DC movies, is lack of color. And this one, I think, really popped in terms of lots of vivid reds, blues, greens, yellows, really all the dynamic color range. So I think it had a lot of good things going for it, and we'll flush in the details here.
Yep. Yeah, what did you think of Aquaman, Tiana?
Well, overall, I thought it was really good. I'm pretty hyped, because everybody kind of knows Aquaman as the underdog in comics, and so I was...
Butt end of jokes.
Yep. Yeah, and so I was kind of rooting for him secretly, and also I did some research on the actor in real life, and he was really funny. I'm really happy that they cast him for this movie. I think he really fit the role really well. With that, the comedy, some of it was a little bit cheesy, but but it was still funny. Like, it still made the overall movie with its own charm.
Yeah.
One thing that was difficult that I was talking to them in the theater was it was really kind of choppy with the events. Like, it really took you for a ride. Like, just when you weren't expecting it to go further and the plot or take a really unexpected turn, you were like, whoa, wait, what?
Yeah.
And so it was still fun. Like, it really kept your attention with that. It was also a little bit cringy in certain parts, like the first battle. You'll see, like, with the father and son. I don't know if that's spoilers, but it was just a little bit cringy.
Well, yeah, I'll get to that.
Yeah, but it was still really a good movie overall. I liked how it kept the Marvel atmosphere along with the colors, as you were saying. But yeah, I actually really like it. I was in for a surprise, and it was a good movie for me.
Yeah, I did like this one. And back to what you were saying about, well, I wanted to touch on a lot of things. First of all, I thought that, the colors in the DC Extended Universe are pretty good in general. People have compared the color tones in the MCU to kind of like wet cement.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
Anyway, but also what you're saying about the first fight scene, there's this really questionable moment with the cutting frames effect that we see for like a few seconds. Like, he just walks through smoke. It's not like a big explosion happened. And it was just like last minute, like, slow motion, which is like so cheap and unprofessional.
Yep.
But anyway, I gotta say that Jason Momoa, I gotta say he's come a long way from Conan the Barbarian.
He really has.
I heard that one did terrible when it came out. And Amber Heard's come a long way from Never Back Down, which is a guilty pleasure of mine.
Absolutely. Was he really in that?
No, Amber Heard was.
Oh,
and Never
Amber
Back
Heard
Down.
was. Okay.
Yeah, and I gotta say that it's funny to see Nicole Kidman in this movie. This is not the first, like the actor who played Ocean Master in this movie. This is not like how that's not his first easy comic book movie. This is not his first movie playing this is not her first DC comic book movie either. She was in Batman Forever as Dr. Chase Meridian.
True.
And I gotta say, this is definitely a step up from Batman Forever.
Yeah, talking about Nicole Kidman and not getting into spoiler territory too much, but it's clear that there's a relationship between, Arthur's mom, being, Edlana in this, and his dad on land. And I was thinking at several points, boy, the actor Mr. Joe Rogan at age 65, who played Arthur's dad, totally must have been feeling like, I am so lucky getting the smooch on Nicole Kidman right now. This guy, I don't know what he's done before this. Okay, well, based on the picture, maybe he was in Moana, but this is probably a big step up for him. So, hey, I'm just the dad. But
yeah, a happy ending for the villain in Home Alone.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of villains and that, I gotta say, it's interesting to see the Green Goblin finally make it to the DC Extended Universe.
Yes!
William Dafoe plays, who was it again?
It was Noidis Volko. I actually don't know the character.
The advisor guy.
The advisor to the throne. And kind of mentor in flashbacks, weirdly placed for Arthur.
Yeah,
I agree with
that.
It's
a little it's kind of a bit over the place with some of the flashback stuff, but I felt like it wasn't that bad. And also, one actor that a lot of people kind of forget is in this movie is Dolph Lundgren as one of the kings of the Seven Seas.
Boy, he looks like Frankenstein's monster. What is going on with
he was in Rocky IV. He was the bad guy in that one.
That makes sense. He looks like he would fit that role very well.
I want to see him go. Yeah, and who is that guy? The Asian guy who's on the news and that? He looks familiar. I think.
Randall Park.
Yeah, he's been
Dr. Stephen Shin.
But he was also an Ant-Man, right?
He was, I think, and he's been in something else. I'm trying to remember, but he's been around.
Yeah,
I've seen him around.
Yeah, and also Julie Andrews is in this movie. I think she voiced that giant monster. What was it? Yeah, what's funny is that it's funny how she turned down to be in Mary Poppins Returns, but she chose to just voice some monster in Aquaman instead. She said, I didn't want to overshadow Emily Blunt. But it's like, yeah, I doubt it. Probably the movie wasn't that good, but anyway, so with the action itself, there's a lot of cool, continuous cut stuff, which I love that cliche in action flicks, especially when they're in Italy, actually no, Sicily, they're running around chasing each other, and during that moment, there's a part where I did the whole Italian hand gesture thing.
Yeah, there was a guy being, crushed by debris, just some random pedestrian, and, I am being crushed, what am I gonna do?
And then I wanted one of the bad guys sometime during the fight messes up some spaghetti. Some guy coming, somebody touched my spaghetti. Best meme of the year, in my opinion.
I loved that it was in Sicily on top of it, so you can bring Godfather jokes in. Aquaman, you come to me on this, my daughter's wedding day.
There's a lot of references we thought of, everything from The Little Mermaid with Amber Heard's character's hair color.
Yeah.
And
yes,
and
exactly.
when they're transferring that boat, I'm like, are they gonna run into the Gungans or something? In fact, there's one part in the movie where they show that giant octopus monster, whatever it was, level 5 kaiju here.
Yes.
From Pacific Rim.
Absolutely. With red lobster claws.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you jokingly said, he'll become the Red Lobster.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great if they got Red Lobster to tie into this.
That would. It'd make perfect sense to sponsor.
Yeah, why not?
That and, what's the one that, Long John Silver's. Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, and also, speaking of, we were talking about SpongeBob earlier. They're fighting these, crab monsters. And I was like,
He's really feeling it now.
He's feeling it now, Mr. Krabs, yes.
I like the final. I'm like during that battle. I'm like the final showdown between the Krusty Krab and the Chum Bucket. The series finale that we never got.
That's amazing.
I never thought I'd get this far.
You'll never take me formula.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, what did you think of the actor who played Black Manta?
Oh, I liked him quite a bit.
Me too.
His whole arc seems to be one of the definitely more interesting parts of the story. Like, a lot of the story elements, especially towards the ending, kind of got into generic superhero movie territory. Like, don't get me wrong, it looked pretty outstanding, I think, in terms of the visual effects. And that was something I was worried about going in, because some of the early commercials and with the characters in the water, I was thinking, this could look kind of rough. But they really, I think, overall did a pretty swell job at making it look pretty realistic for what it was. And I'm glad to see that, because there have been points in a couple of the DC movies where, especially like in, I think, Man of Steel, some of the fighting in the air just got a little bing, 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 like cartoony at points. So I'm glad to see that they really upped their game for this one in the visual effects. And I know that James Wan was saying, kind of when he was initially envisioning this, he wanted to have a real like mystery, horror of the unknown angle to it. And it is clear that a lot of that was thrown out and reshaped into, ooh, look at the pretty colors for this majestic city.
Yeah.
But there was a scene that I think we all really kind of just went, oh wow, this is cool as hell. Where I forgot what they were called, but the
we'll call them the Piranha Men.
Yeah, basically there was one of the kingdoms which was basically just glorified, amphibian monsters that swarmed. And you could tell that is where he was able to get exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah.
This particular scene where they just kind of swarmed was pretty great. Like, one of the most memorable shots, I'd say.
Yeah, just quickly, I'll say that, I mean, some effects may not have aged maybe well a little bit about Man of Steel, but it still doesn't look as cartoony as the third act of Black Panther.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
But,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, yeah, this looked more realistic, I noticed, when two CGI characters were fighting. But anyway, back to what I was saying was that, I mean, I do agree with that whole horror aspect of seeing them diving deep into water was pretty cool. I mean, James Wan's horror background really helped him with that. But I gotta say, his Furious 7 background definitely hurt him with the whole, we're rising slowly from the water like it's Baywatch, and we're gonna start playing Pitbull's Cover of Africa.
That was so cringy. Yeah. That probably was one of the absolute worst aspects, was that cringy song drop.
At least it was brief. Mercifully brief.
Yes.
And that was probably a studio choice
Yep.
to do. And then also, I mean, I kind of forgave it because there's a cool Depoach Mode remix.
Depeche Mode?
Yeah, I love that band. And the villain, they showed that during a montage when the villain was trying to create his suit. I'm like, oh, it's kind of cool how he came up with his suit and that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the part where the circumstances happen where his father gets killed or whatever, I think we both admitted we kind of laughed.
It was overall really funny how it was kind of handled,
Yeah, it was
like, tragic for these two people, but everyone else is just like, okay.
Yeah, it reminded me of that moment from Black Hawk Down when one of the soldiers is trying to sneak around, and there's a father and son. The son has like a gun, and he tries to shoot the soldier, but accidentally shoots his dad.
Oh, no.
And that it reminded me of Black Hawk Down, that moment right there.
Yep. Gosh.
Yeah, so should we well, I'm not so sure. We should briefly talk about spoiler territory. So
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Fast forward to this part if you don't want to be spoiled in that. Okay, so anyway, I thought the third act was interesting, how he did overcome that, and it was a cool giant, monster we saw with all the ocean creatures coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was kind of mixed about the conclusion of that, where it's like, okay, the villain doesn't really die. He actually seems like there's some kind of goodness in him when he sees his mom.
Mm.
But at the same time, the whole mom moment kind of felt like a classical Ex Machina moment.
These Moma's boys, yeah. No, that's very true. The whole plot, to a certain extent, had even with Aquaman himself, this feeling of okay, we know what's going to happen here.
Mhm.
I mean, and that wasn't necessarily the best. I think like there was still some action where it's like people got hurt that were important to the story, and that made it seem like okay, there's some stakes here, kind of. But at the end of the day, Tiana was saying earlier about the plot kind of just escalating really fast, and I feel like a lot of movies currently, I think people have complained about that they tend to drag in the center, and this was exactly the opposite, where it was just kind of like jet lag. People are like, "What?
Yeah.
Wait, we're already moving on to the next thing."
That's
like,
you hit the nail right in the head with that one.
But I definitely agree that there were like Black Manta's character design and Ocean Master, even Aquaman towards the end. They all looked pretty cool once they actually got their costumes fitted.
Yeah.
So what would you give this movie, Steven?
Well, gosh, what would I give this movie? I would say that something in the area of maybe a 87 to an 89% is what I'd give it. I'm not sure in terms of the overall DCEU where I'd put it. It's definitely one of the higher ones, but I personally really have some strong... I really like aspects of Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman. Yes, I said it. And Wonder Woman to a certain extent, but I do think that was a bit overhyped, where this deserves quite a bit of the hype it's getting. So I think those are relatively what I'd give it. We've kind of discussed the flaws, and there is some general genre cheese that is present throughout it that is worth knowing going in, but it's bearable, those aspects, and it's a visually very stunning movie. So I think that if you are going for those reasons and are on the fence about it, definitely give this a chance, because it'll probably surprise you.
Okay, how about you, Tiana?
I'd say it was a really pleasant ride that the movie gave us and gave me. I saw different flaws, like, of course, it's a very fantastical movie in terms of not abiding by physics, but at the same time, there were certain parts where it's like, But, like, for example, the guy at the very end of all the credits that you see, well, we're in the spoiler section now, so...
Well, we kind of already talked about...
Yeah,
Okay. But, like, there are some things that should have happened. People should have died, but physics is against this movie. But anyway...
Well, it's a comic book movie about a whole race of people that can breathe underwater.
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say. It's a very physics against movie, but still. Anyway, overall, I'd have to say probably 85 to 90%, just because it was still a really good ride. And even though I've just kind of gave criticism this whole time, it's fun. It's funny criticism. Like, I still enjoyed it, even with the cheesy parts. That's part of its charm for me. But either way, give this a shot. It's a really good movie.
Okay. Well, personally, I thought the movie was pretty solid. I definitely liked it more than Suicide Squad and also even Justice League. I personally blame the studio for messing that one up.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where I'd put it necessarily against the other DCAU movies compared to, like, Wonder Woman and Man of Steel and even the uncut version of Batman vs. Superman, or the director's cut, as it's better known as.
Right.
I did like the villains, I did like the characters, I did like the cast. Action was pretty good, effects were pretty good for the most part. There were questionable editing decisions, like the cutting frames effect and the Pitbull song moment.
Yikes.
And pacing-wise, it felt a little uneven. Sometimes it felt too slow, and other times it felt a little bit too fast.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, it's a pretty good movie. I wouldn't put it in my top 5 best and worst. I mean, not my top 5 best of the year, but I thought it was a pretty solid movie, entertaining. I liked it a little bit more than Bumblebee, I would say. But overall, I would give Aquaman about 3 stars out of 4.
Yeah, I respect that. Yeah, I agree with pretty much all that. So
yeah. So this is Tyler from Credit Reviews.
Stephen from Stephen Lawson Studios.
And Tihana.
We hope you enjoyed this episode after the credits on Credit Reviews, and we hope to make a lot more in the future. Have a happy new year, everybody, and hopefully we'll make some more stuff later. Who knows what will come up next year. Please like and subscribe. So man, how about that Holmes and Watson movie? I heard it's like bombing harder than Hiroshima.
Oh no!
It came out just after everyone made their top 10 best and worst of the year list.
As if intentional.
To sneak in.
Right. Yeah, just gonna put this here.
The movie has a 3.5, roughly that, user score rating out of 10 on IMDb.
Wow.
User score ratings. People have been walking out in massive numbers. It is
People went in the first place? That's my
People
question.
have said that they either walked out or they fell asleep watching the movie. And people are saying, and I heard it was so bad, that Netflix did not want to touch this movie.
That is saying something.
Oh yeah, and they greenlight a ton of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also people are saying that this movie is probably this generation's Ishtar,
Ooh.
where that was a comedy movie back in the 80s with Dustin Hoffman and Warren Beatty that was hated by critics and audiences, and it was a big financial failure.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't seen Ishtar, so yeah, I think this might be safe to say this could be this generation's Ishtar.
It is gonna be fun to see how hard this turd falls on the ground. Like,
Yeah, I mean, this movie was in development for like a decade, and I'm like, this is kind of like that Catwoman movie. This is the best you could come up with within that amount of time.
yeah. Boy, you're still talking about Watson and Holmes?
Yeah.
It took them 10 years to fumble this bad? Like,
Yeah, instead of 12 years a slave, it's more like 12 years should have, never been released.
12 years of bad decisions. That's,
12 years of wasted money.
yes.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Yeah, 12 years realizing, man, Will Ferrell's not even that funny. Yeah, maybe the man-child thing isn't really so funny like it was in the early 2000s.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.